Krishna Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Ram
Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna
Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Ram Krishna Hare Hare Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare
Ram
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam 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 Hare
Hare
Ram Hare Nam 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Nam 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare
Krishna Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Hare
Hare Ram Nam 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Nam Nam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Nam Nam Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Nam Nam Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Hare Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Ram
Hare
Ram Hare
Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam Hare Hare Hare
Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare Hare
Hare
Hare Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna
Hare Krishna Hare
Ram
Krishna
Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Ram
Ram
Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna
Hare Hare Ram
Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Nam Hare 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 Krishna
Hare
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvya patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo namo namah. Ananta Vaishnavind ki jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur ji ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Good morning, dear devotees. This is Shivani from West Virginia. I would like to welcome you all to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call for this mid-morning session. Please forgive me for stopping your beautiful chanting. Let us move to our next part of the session, which is Sri Caitanya Bhagavat Adi Khanda, chapter 11, verses 70 to 76. May I ask who will have joined this morning? Can you hear me? No, Mataji, I can't. Okay, Hare
It's
Krishna.
little low, Mataji, little low, that's it.
Yeah, please accept my humble obeisances, Jai Shri Prabhupada. This is Preeti Vilasni Devidasi from Atlanta. Hare Krishna, Preeti Vilasni Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Garanga ki jai. Thank you, Mataji, for joining and giving a beautiful association this morning. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Shivani Mataji, Dandat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Garanga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining this mid-morning session and giving a beautiful association this morning. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, so glories to Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharajas and all the assembled Vaishnavas. This is Kirti Dasundri Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Kirti Sundari Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining this mid-morning session and giving a beautiful association, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Gauranga and all the assembled devotees. Yashamati from Chicago.
Hare Krishna, Yashomati Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining and giving a beautiful association today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Is there anybody else who would like to announce their name?
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Guru and Gauranga, all glories to all assembled devotees. This is Shashida joining from Texas.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining this mid-morning session, giving a wonderful association today, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Thank you for joining this mid-morning session and giving a beautiful association today. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I welcome you all once again to Bhakti Sangha Chapter conference call for this mid-morning session. I would like to start by sharing a quote by Srila Prabhupada ji. Best thing is if you chant Hare Krishna and go to Krishna Loka and find out the answers to all these questions yourself. Letter to Ekayani, August 31st, 1971. Today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Haridas Varya Prabhuji. Prabhuji will be enlightening us on Adi Khanda chapter 11 verses 70 to 76. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhuji. Thank you so
Hare
much
Krishna.
for giving. Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving your valuable time and your association this morning. We're looking forward to hearing from you eagerly. Very happy to have you on the call. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Gauranga ki jai. Please take over the call, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shivani Mataji. Thank you very much. At the outset, thank you, Priti Vilasini Mataji, and at the other organizers of Bhakti Sangha Japa group. Before I start, I just want to check, is my voice clear and audible?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, very good. So thank you, all the organizers of Bhakti Sangha Japa group, for giving me constantly an opportunity to purify my words, my existence, and also providing the most important instruction in Krishna consciousness, which is association of devotees. So I'm very fortunate to be today associated with all of you, Vaishnavas and senior Vaishnavis. I request your blessings, permissions, so that I can speak today for the pleasure of Shri Shri Gaur Nitai, so the pleasure of Shri Shri Radha Krishna, and we can imbibe the teachings of Chaitanya Bhagavat deep into our hearts. So with that, we will start with Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavati Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate yatkripatmaham vande Shri Gurum Deenatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, my dear devotees. Welcome once again to this Bhakti Sangha Japa group. Today we are talking about Chaitanya Bhagavat. In that specifically we are talking about the verses in the chapter number 11, which is titled as Meeting with Ishvara Puri, that is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's continuation of pastimes after marriage with Lakshmi Priya. We are moving into the chapter number 11, which is Meeting with Ishvara Puri. And now we are in the most crux of this chapter, where we are going to talk about this topic, which is the title of the chapter, which is none other than Meeting with Ishvara Puri. So today is text 70 to 76, very simple verses, but the purports are par excellent by His Holiness Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. These are wonderful purports, so we will spend time reading these purports because every word of these purports are true nourishment to the heart. So let's go one by one. Text number 70. Hena kale navadvipe Shrishwara Puri Ailena ati alakshita veshadhari. Hena kale navadvipe Shri Ishvara Puri Ailena ati alakshita veshadhari. So this verse translation is, in the meantime, Sri Ishvara Puri came in disguise to Navadvipa. So the translation of this verse starts by saying, in the meantime. So when we say this verse, Hena Kale, in the meantime, or we say meanwhile, that means it indicates there are parallel track of activities. So that means that this verse is connected with the verse which is above, in which it is mentioned that Sri Gaura Sundara, Sachinandana, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is happily passing his days studying Shastra, and it is giving increased joy to Mother Sachi. So while this is being performed, this pastime is being performed of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu learning Shastras and increasing the joy of Mother Sachi, at that same point of time, in the meanwhile, it was not a different time. In that time, somebody came to Navadvip. There are many people who visit Navadvip, but here especially the person who visited Navadvip has been recorded. And how he came to Navadvip, that is being mentioned. And who is that personality? None other than Ishvara Puri. And who is Ishvara Puri? This description will be given in the following verses. But first, let us see the personality whom we are talking about, how he came to Navadvip. Ailena ati alakshita veshadhari. In the commentary, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions that alakshita vesha means in disguise, means that he was dressed in such a way that people would not know that he was a devotee. In other words, he came dressed as an ekadandi sannyasi. So this is a very important lesson that we learned by the conduct of other Vaishnavas. Through the conduct of other Vaishnavas, we get to know how we should live as Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are not behind man, pratishta, sthapana, fame, greed, these aspects do not attract. They are constant source of inspiration, and their constant source of enlightenment is service to spiritual master, service to the deities, service to their lordships, and serving the community of Vaishnavas at large, serving other Vaishnavas. This is the modus operandi, this is the motive of every Vaishnava. And here we are not talking about a Vaishnava who is coming up in the ranks. Here we are talking about a very exalted devotee who is none other than the spiritual master of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And his mention is given in this verse to say that he came to Navadvip, but he came unannounced. He didn't come saying that I am such a great devotee, I am such a big Vaishnava, people should welcome me with red carpet, there should be huge kirtan, garland should be put on me, rose petals should be showered, beautiful fragrance and aguru should be lit, and everywhere I should be announced that I am coming to Navadvip. This is not the way he came. He came in a disguise. And he came in a disguise because he didn't want other people to know that he was a devotee. We see that in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, humility is a greatest ornament. And this ornament is worn, exemplified, shown, showcased, and very clearly it is shown by the actions of the Acharyas that humility is a basic tenet. And it is also the metric or the measure of advancement. If somebody says, I am very humble, my question to the devotees is that, is this statement correct? If somebody says, I am humble amongst Vaishnavas, is this statement correct?
No. No, Prabhuji.
Why it is not correct?
There is a pride in the humility.
Exactly. There is a pride. When we say, I am humble, then indirectly we are associating with the pride in humility. Once Srila Prabhupada and one of his devotees, one of his disciples, I think he signed off a letter or he spoke to Srila Prabhupada saying, I am the most humble menial servant. And Prabhupada immediately retorted back, saying that you are the most nothing. Don't even consider that you are the most humble, because by that also pride comes into our heart. So a Vaishnava is very, very careful by his words, by his actions. No way he gets pratishta. It is commonly mentioned, Kanchan, Kamini, and Pratishta. Kirti. Kanchan, Kamini, and Kirti. Kanchan means money. Kamini means opposite sex. Either for a man it is a woman, or either for a woman it is a man. And Kirti means fame. These three are straight highways to heaven. If somebody does not utilize the money for Krishna's purposes and utilizes the money for one's own purpose, even though it is given in charity or donation, it can take to one's nightmare, can take one to the wrong path. So it is always mentioned that live simple. And we see the examples of Sanatana Goswami, how he gave away his gold coins. And he always wanted to maintain a simple life to go towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So devotees are urged not to carry or not to accumulate a huge amount of wealth, because that can be one of the ways by which we become astray from Krishna consciousness. The other is opposite sex. Attracted to opposite sex, what happens? Greed increases, lust increases. Of course, we are reading in Ajamila's pastime how that because of lust, Ajamila is constantly involved in certain activities where greed develops and he is forced to commit crimes for money. So these two go very much together. But it is said that devotees who are in the Bhakti Yoga, who are practicing Bhakti Yoga, it is very easy for them to come over or to pass ahead of these difficulties of Kanchan and Kamini, which is money and which is of opposite sex. But where they get caught is Kirti, fame. They get very entangled because the minute somebody is humble, because the other Vaishnavas' basic tenet is to glorify the Vaishnavas. Because this is the basic etiquette of Vaishnavas. When two Vaishnavas or two Vaishnavis meet, they have sweet exchange of words, they have sweet pleasantries, and they talk about Krishna, and they encourage each other about their services to Krishna. And when this is the natural paradigm of exchange of communication between two Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, there is glorification. And when there is glorification, there is every single possibility that one, if he or she is not in the proper mode of humility, this glorification enters in the heart repeatedly to become as pride. So one does not need this. And this is very opposite. One starts to think that one has become advanced in Krishna consciousness, and slowly they go astray. Slowly they take things for granted. When they sit on the Vyasasana, they feel why the garland has not come yet. When they go in the association of devotees, they feel why the arati is not shown to me first. They always see who is the first person, whom the arati is getting, who is senior, how can I enter into that circuit? All these thoughts go on in the practical life. But a Vaishnava stays far away from all of these. A Vaishnava's motive is just to serve Krishna. So we see here in Ishwara Puri, he did not want any false attraction to himself. He did not want to proclaim when he entered Navadip that he is the disciple of Madhuvender Puri, one of the greatest acharyas. So many people would have come and taken his darshan, taken his dust of his lotus feet. So he came in a disguise. He didn't come proclaiming that he was Ishwara Puri. Why? What was the motive? The commentary says, so that people would not know that he was a devotee. So we see in other examples, like we hear Gaur Kishoridas Babaji Maharaj. It is said that sometimes he would sit inside the toilet and he would chant his holy name. Of course, we can't practice that. But the main reason was that nobody would come to him. Nobody would knock on his doors. And he can be away from material association of people who can come for asking for money, asking for opposite sex, or asking for fame. So they would like to be aloof from these three parameters. And we see here that Ishwara Puri came in that way. Not only that, he is ready to even take the form of an Ekadandi sannyasi. He is a Vaishnava sannyasi. The Vaishnava sannyasis are Tridandis, but in disguise. So he came to a pure Vaishnavite place, which is Navadvip, disguised as a person whom people would not generally associate. So he came as an Ekadandi sannyasi, so that he was only focused on his purpose of his visit, which was to meet Advaita Acharya. So this is a very great learning that we get to hear, that how humility should be there in the heart. And when humility is there in the heart, it is naturally seen in actions. Generally, these three are connected together. Thoughts, words, action. So I will give a simple question to the devotees who are there on the call. Assume that I have to give an examination. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the morning, I have to give an examination. To enter the examination hall, I have to produce a hall ticket, or I have to produce an I-card saying that, identity card, saying that I belong as a student who is eligible to give this examination. Unfortunately, I forgot my hall ticket or my identity card, and it was picked up by, let's say, Preeti Vilasini Mataji picked up the identity card of mine. Next day at 9 a.m., I realized that my hall ticket or my identity card is not there. And 10 o'clock, the exam is going to start. At that time, I get a call from Preeti Vilasini Mataji, and she says, Prabhu, I have your identity card. I am bringing it so that you can enter the examination hall. And I'm very happy that somebody is helping me out. And I wait outside the hall, waiting for Preeti Vilasini Mataji to come and give me the hall ticket or give me the identity card. 9:15, she doesn't arrive. 9:30, she doesn't arrive. 9:45, she doesn't arrive. 10 o'clock, the first bell has rang. I'm supposed to enter the examination hall. She doesn't arrive. Now is the question which is to the audience. What will be the thoughts going in your mind if you are Haridas Varya Prabhu waiting for Preeti Vilasini Mataji, waiting for getting the hall ticket? 10 o'clock has happened, the bell has gone, and she hasn't arrived. So I need some volunteers. So what will be the thoughts running in the mind? Kirtida Sundari Mataji, what would be your thoughts?
The first thought is that if she's driving, then is she safe?
Very nice. 10:05, the invigilator comes and says, Mataji, if you don't enter in next 5 minutes, you will be failing the examination. Then what will be the thought, Mataji?
Again, the same thought, that might be she is in some trouble and that's why she didn't turn up. So again, thought will be that prayers will be going on that, oh Krishna, please help her so that she can come early.
Okay. Be with me, Mataji. Now 10:15. You find Preeti Vilasini Mataji coming, eating a good Mahaprasadam and forgetting that she was supposed to come at 9:45. And you see her eating an ice cream from Govinda's, and she's coming slowly and she's taking her time. So what will be your response?
I'll just immediately take the card, thank her and go.
That's because it's me. Think of someone else.
Very okay. Anybody else? Okay. Kirtida Mataji says she will take and go. Okay. Anybody else?
I'll thank her. At least she came and I'll just go.
Okay. Very nice, Mataji.
Request the invigilator to please allow me to sit in the exam.
Yes. So I'll give you two other responses previously in some forums.
I'll be furious.
Who will be furious?
I would be furious.
I'll ask her,
to snatch it and go.
Snatch it and go. Lalitangi Radha Mataji says, I'll be angry that how can she forget this? But we are the one who forgot the hall ticket, by the way, just reminding everyone. So there are three kinds of response. One will be to just think, like how Lalitanga Mataji said, angrily thinking, why, how can she do this? Can't she enjoy the ice cream later or share with me a little bit? But then how can she do this? The second will be Sukha Prabhu being logical. Sukha Mataji is asking, I'm waiting here. Why couldn't you come early? She would ask these questions and then immediately grab because you have to go and give the exam, and she would go. But I'm very happy to see that nobody said that first I'll snatch the ice cream, put it down, stomp it once, give one tight slap. Mataji, what are you doing? Don't you know? And then go ahead. So nobody is doing that, but I'm very happy to see. So what is the difference between these three responses? For response number one, which is to think, why is she doing like this? Response number two, where Sukha Mataji is asking, why did she forget? And response number three is to physically punish for the latecomer. What's the difference? And which is the best response? Now, if you have to rate the response, which is the best response? Anybody?
You should ask and at least try to know what the reason is so you can make amends for the future.
Okay. You can ask so that you can amend for the future. Okay. Anybody else? How many of you feel the third response is the best response? Later, all answers can be got later. First, because she's late. Okay. Yeah, one hand up. Very good. Yeah. Yes, go ahead. Somebody has to say something. No,
Prabhu,
okay.
I was saying the best, what I feel is that unnecessary, fine, the other person is simply eating ice cream or just, walking around. But still, we should be grateful, because if I keep myself in that situation, then I have practically lost that iCard or that hall ticket. But at least the person is courteous enough to inform that another person has it, even if that person is bringing late, maybe n number of reasons. But still, I should be thankful that at least that person got me in a hall ticket so that I can enter or sit in the examination. So we'll just that time, because the demand of that time is that we'll just take the ticket, thank, and just go inside for the examination, sit for the examination. Later we can talk to that person, what happened, why were you late, because at that time, not the demand of the time.
Absolutely. Very nice, Mataji. I see Induleka Mataji as well. I'd like to hear her answer. Yes, Mataji.
It is not an answer. It was more of a question that I have.
Yes.
I just wanted to know, Prabhu, you said that at 10:05, the invigilator, he told you that you won't be able to write the exam if you are more than 5 minutes late. And now she's come at 10:15. So can you even enter the examination hall? What is the assumption here?
Assume that you have to bargain with another 3 ice creams to let you in. But yes, assume that there is some chance, at least now, to enter the exam.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. So, yes, Kirtidas Mataji, that's a very, very nice answer. So what I wanted to drive is that if you see the 3 answers given, one is, I will figure it out later. What Kirtida Mataji mentioned about is having gratitude. The other was to ask, and the third was to punish. In different sections of people, as per consciousness, all these 3 are their responses. But as devotees, we should understand which is the best response. A response of action, of punishment, is generally not the Brahmanical quality. When somebody does bad to me, I return the action with a physical action, is generally not the Brahmanical, punishing a person or ill-treating a person. This is not the way of a Brahmanical response. Forget about even a Vaishnavite response. Second is by words. Sometimes we are very clear in our consciousness that we do not take physical actions of abuse or punishments or revenge, but at least by words, we may say certain things which might affect the other Vaishnava. And because Kartik is coming, generally one of the most difficult vows in Kartik is not Bhishma Pancham, is not the vows of lying on the floor for the whole month. The most difficult vow of Kartik is not to think or not to speak ill about any devotee. Now, this is one of the most difficult vows of Kartik. To respect everyone, amanina manadena, it's one of the vows of Kartik. Many devotees take that, and it is very difficult. To speak ill about a devotee is also not the best response. And to think that why this person did like this, like that, is also not the best response. But if you grade these responses A person who just thinks is better than one who speaks, is even better than one who acts. But the real Vaishnava is like how Kirtida Mataji said, having a sense of gratitude and excusing and forgetting the fact that the other person has done a mistake. Because we had forgotten the hall ticket. And suddenly, because somebody said they will come and give the hall ticket, we get ourselves into the position of entitlement of getting it on time. The other person is not entitled. Of course, the other person is Vaishnava and they also understand, they execute. Then we are not in the entitlement zone. This can be practically applied. I'm not saying this is the framework to apply for every situation, but here we should always try to find out avenues by which we do not hurt another devotee by thought, by words, by action, and we are always having gratitude. Why? Because only when we are stopping our words, we can stop our action. And only when we stop our thoughts, we can stop our words. Because if we don't stop our thoughts, and if we constantly keep on abusing or saying back, though the other person cannot physically hear, if we keep in our thoughts, very soon it is going to come in words. And if we continue on the platform of words, very soon we will reach the platform of action, which is either by hand or legs or whatever. So if we see, in the contrary, if we see a devotee in actions perfect, then we should understand that that devotee is perfect in words and thoughts. And if we find a person is perfect in words, we should understand that person is good in thoughts. And if even by thoughts, even when wrong messages are communicated to the devotee, he stays stita prajna, he stays happy. That means that even the thoughts he has conquered, he or she has conquered. So we see here in actions, Ishvara Puri is executing a disguise and doesn't even bother that he is not identified as a devotee. So just by this action, we get to know he is the spiritual master. Because the first instruction of nectar of instruction is one who has won over Vacho Vegam, Mano Vegam, Jihva Krodha Vegam. If you see, all these are Vegas, urges, and one who has gained victory over it is qualified, is potential to instruct the whole world. And who is the owner of the whole world? Vishwambar, who is none other than Gaur Sundar. And that is the qualification of a spiritual master. And now he is entering Navadvip. So this small verse gives us so much insights about the way a Vaishnava behaves, a way the Vaishnava actually showcases his behavior. And it is a very great lesson to all of us. So now let us see what else was his characteristics. Of course, he entered in disguise, but can he disguise his internal heart? That is being mentioned in text 71. Krishna rase parama viha bala mahashaya ekanta krishnera priya ati daya maya. Translation: he was overwhelmed with love for Krishna. Though he was disguised as Ekadandi sannyasi who enjoys a lot of Shantaras, but he was fully overwhelmed. It is not that he was full, he was overwhelmed with love for Krishna. And he was most merciful and dear to Lord Krishna. Yes, he was most dear and merciful to Lord Krishna. So he was overwhelmed with love for Krishna. He wanted to always please Krishna. And he carried this love in his heart for Krishna. That is being mentioned. And the commentary is very beautiful. In the consideration of worshipable objects, Krishna is the topmost. So here, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is going to mention about the different rasas. And he's going to give a comparison between the spiritual world and the material world. In a very beautiful way, in this purport, he mentions that in the Vaikuntha, Sri Narayana is object of 2.5 rasas out of the 5 rasas. Whereas the impersonal Brahman is the object of only Shantarasa. And in Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, we generally see that the Acharyas do not largely communicate about Shantarasa, because they do not consider, or they even do not count, that is what is written amongst the rasas. Though it exists, but you will not find a lot of commentary on that rasa. And what they will comment upon is the other beautiful rasa of Vrindavan and the beautiful rasas that one can enjoy with Krishna. So in this purport, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions very clearly how on the other side of the Viraja river is the Devi Dama, or the material world. And he distinguishes this material world with the spiritual world. He mentions very clearly that in the material world, the objects are perishable, whereas in the spiritual world, their objects are not perishable. They are eternal in nature. And there is, in the spiritual world, there is spiritual variegatedness, spiritual characteristics. And very clearly, there is an establishment of servant and the servant. So this is very clearly seen in the spiritual world. So that is why sometimes in the material world, there is bereft of rasa. We cannot see all the 5 rasas of Krishna to be exactly matching in this material world. And hence Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, hence sometimes it is known in the material world as virasas. Virasas means bereft of rasas. Or in other words, it's called as disgusting. So in this way, he compares the rasas, the mellows. Of course, there are technical definitions of anubhav, vibhav. We are not going into that. But then there are differentiation of what we feel as rasas in the material world, and what are the real definition of rasa in the spiritual world. And here, all this discussion is being mentioned because to say that in the spiritual world, the absolute truth, who is none other than Krishna or Vrajendra Nandan, he is the only object, and Baldeva is the manifestation of that object. So here he mentions that all the rasas in the spiritual world is centered in Krishna. And Baldeva's 4 manifestations, Chaturvyuha, are situated in Mahavaikuntha. So all these explanations are mentioned here just to mention that when Ishwara Puri is coming down to Navadvip, he is under the subordination of Sri Madhuvender Puri. He is coming as a disciple of Madhuvender Puri. And what is the qualification of Madhuvender Puri? Madhuvender Puri was an expert in relishing all the rasas of the spiritual world. And he had bestowed this blessing to his disciple, to his dear disciple, none other than Ishwara Puri. And Ishwara Puri, because of that spiritual master's blessing, he is coming fully in his heart with fully endowed Krishna Prem, and he is entering into Navadvip. So this is why we learn in the verse, which is in the song of Ebaro Karuna Karo, this beautiful stanza is being mentioned. Tomara hrudoye sada Govinda Vishram Govinda Kohena Mora Vaishnava Param Ebaro Karuna Karo. Tomara hrudoye sada Govinda Vishram. Your heart is always the resting place of Lord Govinda. And Ishwara Puri is such a personality in whose heart is always Govinda is residing. Govinda Kohena Mora Vaishnavera. And who is there in Govinda's heart? It is such Vaishnavas. Such wonderful Vaishnavas are there in the heart of Govinda. So Krishna is there in the Vaishnava's heart, and Vaishnavas, Krishna is there in Vaishnava's heart, and in Krishna's heart are Vaishnavas. So this is what is mentioning about. And Ishwara Puri was such a personality. So what did he do after he came? He straight away went to the house of Advaita Acharya. Tanaveshe tane kehe chinta na pare daive giya uthi lena Advaita mandire. Wearing that dress, no one could recognize him as he arrived by providence at the house of Advaita. By providence, here also Krishna's will is mentioned as by providence. Many places in Shastras, you will see this word as yadrichaya. Yadrichaya in Sanskrit means by the will of providence, or it will be called as akasmat, or it will be called as out of the providence, such a personality came to visit Advaita Acharya's house. So we see these examples when Vishwamitra visits Dasharatha's palace. We see this example when we see that Parashuram came in front of the chariot of Lord Ramchandra. So we see this word of Yadrichaya, or we see this word that this person came to visit Advaita Acharya. So this, by will of providence or Yadrichaya, this personality of called as Ishwara Puri, no one could recognize him because he was disguised. He came to Advaita Acharya's house. Now the question could be that why did he come to Advaita Acharya's house? Why did he not go to any other house in Mayapur? It is mentioned in the commentary that he wanted to associate with like-minded persons. This is the third lesson that we learn in a Vaishnava etiquette, that the Vaishnavas will like to associate only with people who are like-minded in nature, who by associating, they can constantly discuss about Krishna Katha. They can talk about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They can talk about their services to the Lord. They can increase their enthusiasm to serve the Lord. They are not interested in anything else. So they are interested to meet like-minded devotees and to be with them. And here it is also mentioned that Advaita Acharya was none other than the God brother. The God brother is none other than Advaita Acharya, who is also a disciple of Madhuvender Puri. So he went to his God brother's house. This is a very wonderful example of how God brothers and God sisters should be united under a spiritual master. A spiritual master is mostly happy when he sees his disciples are coming together, serving the movement and serving the instructions provided by the spiritual master. This is the most important parameter to be seen. And this, when the spiritual master sees, he feels very, very happy. He feels blissful in his heart that his disciples, his God brothers, his disciples are working towards the common mission, which is to serve the instructions of his spiritual master. So, considering this, Ishwara Puri came to Advaita Acharya's house. And by doing this, what was being proved? He didn't want to showcase that I came to Advaita Acharya to discuss. By this, a very beautiful concept was proved, that this proved his spontaneous attachment to his spiritual master. So when two God brothers meet, then this also exemplifies that they both love the spiritual master very wonderfully. So this is a very great learning, that there should be no infighting. There should be no groupism. There should be no kind of circles formed within a spiritual master's God brother or God sisters. All of them, the Guru Varga, they should all serve together. And this is very beautifully exhibited in ISKCON, where the entire Guru Varga, they are being served under the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. And all the devotees, they are ready to serve each other and disciples of Srila Prabhupada. In fact, I was hearing once, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj says that whoever visits the Radha Gopinath temple, and specifically if they are the God brothers of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, Maharaj has given standing instructions to the devotees of Chaupati temple that they should be treated the same way they treat Maharaj, or even better. So this is a very wonderful Vaishnavite culture where everybody is treated in the same way of a residing sannyasi or the residing guru. So it is a very important lesson that each and every devotee learns, that one has to be given respects and everybody has to be seen as a servant of Krishna. And when two godbrothers meet, they exchange pleasantries right from the heart and they are involved in serving the spiritual master. This is a natural conclusion that they both have spontaneous attachment to the spiritual master. So Ishwara Puri reached none other than Advaita Acharya's house, and then beautiful events occurred. Text 73, Ekhane Advaita Seva Karena Vashiya Sammukhe Vashila Baddha Sampuchita Haya. And he didn't speak much. He humbly sat down close to where Advaita Prabhu was performing his puja. We see the same kind of behavior when we see other acharyas. They approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or they approach senior. They don't walk into the house claiming that they have arrived. They just humbly sit down. They wait for the person, the host, or in whose house they are, to reach out to them, to ask them. They don't consider themselves very important that they should announce themselves that they have arrived or disturb the other one while they are doing the service. So here we see Ishwara Puri just humbly sat down. And Advaita Prabhu, he was performing his puja. But the other Vaishnava, it is his duty to give due respect to anybody who is a Vaishnava and visiting the home. So now we will see from the perspective of not Ishwara Puri, but from the perspective of Advaita Acharya, how he welcomes a guest. And we get to see a very beautiful way of how he welcomes the guest. First, he notices Ishwara Puri. And it's mentioned text 74. Vaishnavera teja Vaishnavete nalu khaya puna puna advaita tahane pane chaya. The effulgence of a Vaishnava cannot be hidden from another Vaishnava. One gets to know who is a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is expert in understanding who is the other jewel amongst their best. And therefore, Advaita Prabhu looked at him again and again. There was a divine glow, which was effulgence coming out of Ishwara. And that is why in the same song we learn, Gangara Parasha Hoile Pashate Pavan Darshane Pavitra Koro Eito Margu Ebaro Karuna Koro. So, Gangara Parasha Hoile Pashate Pavan. After bathing in the waters of sacred Ganges many times, one becomes purified. But what happens? If a person just sees a Vaishnava, Darshane Pavitra Karo Yeito Margu. But if somebody just sees a pure Vaishnava who is endured within his heart, who is overwhelmed with Krishna's love in the heart, just by seeing that personality, all the fallen souls are purified. And this is not the great power of the Ganges, this is the great power of the Vaishnava. And that he carries Govinda in his heart, and Govinda carries him in his heart. So this is very wonderful that Advaita Acharya, looking at the effulgence, he was seeing Ishwara Puri again and again and again. Because the other Vaishnava knows we have a Vaishnava amongst us. So text 75, Advaita Acharya begins to speak. Advaita bole na baba tumi kon jana Vaishnava sannyasa tumi he na laya mana. And Advaita Acharya understood that though you are carrying Eka Danda, you seem to be a Vaishnava sannyasi. And he said, Dear Prabhu, who are you? I think you are a Vaishnava sannyasi. And here the Vaishnava sannyasi is explained very nicely by none other than Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. The Karmi sannyasis who follow the Smriti principles of renounced order of life, they accept Tridanda. Or in other words, they travel alone. The Jnani sannyasis accept Ekadanda. And while cultivating the study of Vedanta, they practice the 6 sadhanas like peacefulness, self-control, tolerance, and achieving the desired result. So here Ishwara Puri is a Vaishnava sannyasi. So they are not attached to karma and jnana. So they have given up both the desire of material sense enjoyment and also the desire of renouncing the sense enjoyment. Because even the attachment towards sense enjoyment, that is bad. Even renouncing sense enjoyment is not being achieved for. But what are they interested in? If they are not attached to sense enjoyment and they are not attached to renouncing the sense enjoyment, what are they attached with? They're attached with just unalloyed service of Lord Hari. And they are in the principle of giving both enjoyment and renunciation. They are not encouraged, they are not interested to be called as the greatest renunciants. Neither they are interested to be called as the greatest enjoyers. They don't want to be called as enjoyers. They don't want to be called as the greatest renunciants. They are only interested in unalloyed service of the Lord. Because in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 23rd chapter, 57th verse, it is mentioned, I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nations by just being firmly fixed in the service feet of lotus feet of Krishna. This was approved by the previous acharyas who were fixed in the form devotion towards the Lord, Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of God. By the mercy of Madhuvender Puri, also the mercy of Sri Advaita Acharya, Advaita Prabhu, he was able to recognize his god brother Advaita Acharya. And since both were disciples of Madhuvender Puri, and because Advaita Acharya was playing a householder and Ishwar Puri but was actually a Vaishnava sannyasi, Advaita Acharya welcomed Ishwara Puri into the house. And as a grihastha, he was very much welcoming the renunciant into his house, and it did not take him much time. We see similar kind of welcome even in Srimad Bhagavatam when Nand Maharaj welcomes Garga Muni. And he mentions a very beautiful verse where Garga Muni is being welcomed, and he mentions Nanda Maharaj welcomes and says, you have actually no cause, I'm just quoting it in my words, you have actually no reason to come and visit us. But devotees like you, who are pure devotees, your only motive is to bless the grihasthas. So you go from one place to another to impart your instruction and bless the grihasthas. So I welcome you, and you have come at the right time. Please give the naming ceremony. Please give the names to Krishna and Balaram. So in this way, Nanda Maharaj showcases how a grihastha should invite a sannyasi. One should give good asan to sit, one should give good words, and one should provide prasad, and one should engage in Krishna Katha. These are the grihastha's rules when one visits a renunciant. So this was performed by none other than Advaita Acharya. And finally, we see the text 76. Bolena Ishwara Puri Ami Shudra Dham Dekhi Bare Ai Lala Tomara Charana. Even though the effulgence is being seen, such a great personality like Advaita Acharya is welcoming and giving wonderful words, still Ishwara Puri is showcasing his humility. And when he was asked, who are you? He is not giving a giant description that I am your god brother and I took initiation before you or I took initiation after you. Nothing of those sort is being mentioned. He's just saying, I am lower than a Shudra. I have come here simply to see your lotus feet. Now please understand, the Varna and the ashramas are different here. The ashramas are different. The Advaita Acharya is exhibiting the role of a householder, and here we have Ishwara Puri is walking as a Vaishnava sannyasi. But still he says, I've come here to see your lotus feet. Because the humility of a Vaishnava is that I am not a Vipro, not a Narapatir. I am always following this pearl necklace which is there in the neck, which is Trinadapi Suni Chena Taro Riva Sahishnama. This is the quality which Ishwara Puri is exhibiting here. And in this way, he replies that I am here, and don't think that I am a person situated in the mode of goodness or beyond. I am actually a Shudra. I do not know the qualities of an excellent Vaishnava. So consider me like a Mlecha, consider me like a Shudra. And that is how he introduces himself. And this is also a sign of humility. So very beautifully, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions about the sanskaras of each one of them and how one should not beg for prestige, because begging for prestige will give us mundane pride, and one should not do that. And we see that the non-Vaishnava sannyasis, we can see in the modern world, they try to adulterate their practices and they try to pose as if they are Paramahamsas. But in a Vaishnava sannyasi, one need not artificially try to be in the platform of Paramahamsa. Just by engaging in unalloyed service of the Lord, one naturally reaches that position. So Ishvara Puri here humbly came in a disguise to Advaita Acharya's house, did not disturb his service, sat down next to him, and when asked a question, he mentioned, I am a Shudra. I am here. And why am I here? I'm not here to get service, but I am here to take darshan of your lotus feet. And this is also to see the humility of Ishvara Puri. So we get very, very clear instructions from these 6 verses that how should a person act. And such a person is fit or potential or is qualified to instruct disciples Prithvim cha Shishya. He can instruct disciples, or he is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So this is what Ishvara Puri would be doing. And he will meet with Gauranga Mahaprabhu. But right now, his qualities will be exposed by Mukunda. But those are wonderful verses of how Mukunda sings, how it affects deeply the heart of Ishvara Puri, what are the actions that he performs, how he will roll on the ground in ecstasy. All these verses we will see the next time we discuss about Chaitanya Bhagavata. I thank each and every one of you for taking out your time to hear these 6 verses of Ishvara Puri visiting Navadvip. I thank for your time and also the opportunity given to me to speak about this subject matter. Many of these are beyond my capability to explain, but with the blessings of the previous Acharyas, with the blessings of the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, I hope I could do some justice to these verses. If there were any comparisons, words which have hurt you or which have been wrong, please highlight them so that I can also learn on the way. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yadastras Khalitam Kinchit Vidvam Sapurayanvitat Yadatrat Saushtuvam Kinchit Tad Guru. Whatever excellent things that you have heard today, none of them belong to me. All belongs to my spiritual master. And if there are any mistakes, I'm sure there are many. And those belong truly to me. But you are all Vidwans, you are all experts. Please do the justice by highlighting them, correcting them, so that the audience feel more enriched to hear about Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thank you very much. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you so much for the very, very beautiful class. As you said, there might be some corrections needed, but as far as I think, no corrections. Prabhu, it was superb class, I should say. Like, I was just thinking, if I would have been given these verses, I would have just simply read and not even dive deep into the mood of these verses. But you did an awesome job, Prabhu. So glories to you. We are really grateful to have you on the call, for always accepting our request, coming on the call and giving such a nectarian katha always. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Madhuri. Thank you for your kind words always and encouragement. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. Haridas Varya Prabhuji. Very, very beautiful nectarian class, as Kirtida Sundari Mataji said. You explained so wonderfully and in so much details, like how Ishwar Puri came to Navdeep in disguise as Ekadandi and sannyasi. He didn't want anyone to know he was a devotee. And he also mentioned that he used to do his rounds in the bathroom to be away from everybody, not to be bothered. I mean, just so exalted devotee. And then why he went to his godbrother's house only and nobody else, as they're light-minded people want to be together and just talk about God. Very, very beautiful nectarian class. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dear devotees, if there are any more, dear devotees, as we open up the forum for questions and realizations, I request all of you to please ask questions and related to the class today. Please do not ask any personal questions, as these classes are recorded and shared in different groups. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Very, very beautiful class, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for such a beautiful class. When you were asking the question of the exercise you given, that time I was on another call, but then I understood the little bit of conversation. So definitely I would have got angry with the other person. So how do that anger, still now, even being a devotee, I might get anger. I will get anger, actually. I could say I will get anger. So how this tendency will go, Prabhu? What do we do for this, not to get anger on others?
Good question, Mataji. And as I said, that example, it's not a blanket example for all situations. We need to see the different situations. And as Sukhamataji also has mentioned, that there could be different scenarios where there could be a different response to it. But to answer your question, that how do we overcome anger? I heard from one of the senior most devotees that in ISKCON, I think Rukmini Krishna Prabhu, he very wonderfully said in one of the Japa talks, when somebody is getting angry on us, we just accept it, our karma is lost. We generally feel at the moment of getting anger, we feel that we have been subjugated or we have been put down or our point of view have not been heard. Generally, these are some of the responses that go in the mind. And we feel that, oh no, our point is not heard, or it's factually incorrect, or we have been falsely blamed. I have not been heard out properly. And hence we shout or we get angry and we speak out loud. So it was mentioned that when it is not for Krishna, when we are getting angry for our own purposes, for our own self protection or whatever it might be, it's not for Krishna, it's not dovetailed towards Krishna, then it's not very good. One can get angry just like Hanuman became angry and he burnt the whole Lanka, but that is seen as a service. One can get angry if some devotees are getting insulted or hurt and one shows aggression and anger and stops that. That is considered good. So these are in service to Krishna. So one has to deeply introspect and see if we are getting angry, we generally feel we are losing something. But if one keeps in the mind that if I don't retaliate, if I don't get angry, either by the provocation of words or whatever, if we don't retaliate, we are not actually losing. We gain by losing our bad karma. By accepting insults, it's almost like death. So while accepting insults, even if it is not our fault, we are losing our bad karma. Bharat Maharaj is a great example of this. Many people was blaming him as the reason why Lord Ramchandra left Ayodhya. In fact, he was not at all at fault. He was not even there when Kaikeyi asked for those books. And he had to carry the burden of others' accusations. He could have easily got angry and he could have retorted, or he could have banished people who are blaming him from the kingdom while he was ruling on behalf of the Padukas. But he accepted and he went to Nandanvan. He went to Nandigram and he just kept on doing his activities. He didn't retort anything back. It is such a great burden to accept the mistakes of one when they have not committed. That is why he's called Bharata, Bharaha iti Bharata. He's carrying the burden of no mistakes of his. But what did he get? He was the first person who Lord Ramchandra met when he came back. He didn't go to anybody else. He flew and came right at Nandigram and he met Bharat Maharaj first. He met Bharata first. And he said, Bharata, I am here to meet you. Lakshmana was astonished. He was serving him, but he was always speaking, I need to go, because I need to meet Bharata. Why? Because he did not retaliate. So by not getting angry, by not exhibiting that behavior, often we think we are losing materially, but by not doing it, accepting it, even by having gratitude of saying, thank you for pointing out my mistakes, we are actually gaining in spiritual life. So that is why private victories in spiritual life are to be celebrated much more than public victories. And private victories are in the heart. Private victories are to be celebrated, not up to the account of pride, but they have to be celebrated and thanked to Krishna. Thank you very much. And those are the steps to it. So when we get angry, if we remember that by accepting this and keeping it, containing it, maintaining it, and it is not in service of Krishna, we lose our term. So this is a way we can overcome the angry factor. And another way is by eat only prasad. By eating only prasadam, our tongue is controlled, then our words don't come back, then we are in good consciousness, then we are not passionate, we are not lusty, and then we don't get angry. So our tongue should always have prasad. Does that answer the question, Master?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for a beautiful answer. Hare Krishna.
Yes, anybody else? Indulekha Mataji, I see you. Please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for such an, it was an interactive session and also keeping us continuously engaged in hearing the pastimes of Sri Ishwara Puri. It was a wonderful class, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I had a question about why he had to come disguised. Because at that time in Navadvip, from our previous readings, it seemed like the devotees were not very favored. And people in general, they didn't feel like they should respect or go see the devotees or, honor them, treat them well. So then why did he have to disguise himself?
For two reasons, Mataji. One is that he is still a sannyasi. So though people do not respect, or in the previous reading, if you find that people do not respect Vaishnavas, but at least by ashrama, he is at a senior ashram. So there was a culture, we're talking about 500 years and back, even today. If in the ashram, somebody just wears the renunciant clothes, he gets a lot of respect. He gets a lot of wishes to be answered, blessings to be given. There are people falling at the feet. There are so many attractions that a person gets. And practically speaking, for a renunciant or a spiritual master, he actually is accessible if he start accepting this as norm, or accepting this as normal, that, okay, when I go, I can accept people, I can give blessings. Then it becomes very difficult for them to continue in the path of devotional service, because pride will come inside, pratishtha will come inside. So here he wanted for two purposes. One, even by an ashram, he did not want, but he again disguised as a different, not as a Vaishnava sannyasi. And people know that the Vaishnava sannyasis are highest and they bestow pure love of Godhead and they give Krishna and the 5 rasas to devotees. So if somebody knows that it's a treasure chest walking in, then people will always try to access. So that's one of the reasons why he was disguised. And second, he also did not want to go before his godbrother, riding an ego wave that I'm I'm a senior. He always was in the mood of a servant. And we can see that in his words. He says, I'm lower than a Shudra and I've come here just to take the darshan of your lotus feet. So this actually showcases his mood to approach a person in a servile attitude. You need to be dressed that way. You need to be thinking that way. You need to be acting that way. So all those three activities were showcased by Ishwara Puri, by words, by action, and by thoughts. So all these three are being seen very clearly in these verses. The words, the action, the words, the thoughts, the words, the action. And all these three is being showcased. And they are all in sync with one thing, which is, I am nobody. I'm trying to serve the Lord in my best capacity. So that's one of the reasons, Mataji. Alekshita Vesha, he came in as disguise. That's my understanding. If anybody else has any other understanding, they can definitely share. Okay, I see.
Mataji, you are talking, but we can't hear you.
Yes, Angelica, can you try again?
Oh. Can you
Now
hear
we
me
can.
now?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for that answer. That was very wonderful. And I was also thinking about these three specific acts, like our thoughts, our words, and our actions. So based on what one is, the next will follow. So we need to try to make our consciousness and our thoughts clean. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Can we, because you're thinking on that, Mataji, can I ask a question? Sorry, can I ask a question? Do you know any other pastime where these three are very wonderfully mentioned?
Wow, okay. Because it's you, Prabhuji, I'm thinking Ramayana related. I'm not sure.
No, it's
please tell us.
It's have you heard this pastime of Bhrigu Muni testing Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh?
Yes.
So he first goes to Brahma, and Brahma thinks, why is he not paying obeisances unto me? And then Bhrigu says, you cannot be the supreme because by thoughts you are thinking like this. And then he goes to Lord Shiva. Then Bhrigu Muni has already offended by thoughts to Brahma. He starts speaking ill about Lord Shiva. And he says, you cannot be also like that. But by the time he comes to Vishnu, his thoughts and words are already over. He starts to kick on the chest of Vishnu, where by actions he performs that activity. And then Lord Vishnu's reaction is to quell the pride of his devotee. And he presses the third eye, generally it is mentioned like that, which is the pride in his feet. And he asks the question, did you feel hurt? My chest is like a thunderbolt. Did you feel hurt? Now, this is not a retaliation. This is an action showed by Narayan, that how the Lord is. So the Lord's devotees are also. So the thoughts, words, action, we also see in this pastime of Bhrigu Muni, testing the Trinity.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you. Yes, Charu. Prabhu or Mataji, I'm sorry. Charu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Please accept my obeisances. And thanks for the wonderful class. I've always relished your class. It's so enriching and always there is a takeaway. Prabhuji, I have this doubt always, but based on the response which you gave to Vinita Ganvatrika Mataji, I would like to clarify. Sorry if it is very university. You said we can get angry if it is something related to Krishna, not for our own personal benefit, but something related to Krishna. Trying to understand from my level, is it like if someone defames Lord Krishna or doesn't accept Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead, is it in that context, or is it also applicable to say if I want to do some service to Krishna, or if I want to, I'm trying to do some bhakti, I'm getting some protest. Is it also applicable in that scenario as well? I mean, I'm trying to control, I'm not yet there, but sometimes it just outpours, but later I feel that I shouldn't have done that. So what is it related to Krishna? I'm trying to understand.
A simple example is if you find violence against devotees, somebody is abusing devotee, somebody is in the temple, somebody is beating somebody, right? And so somebody is abusing another devotee. And if you don't stop, if you don't get angry and stop, suppose you need to exemplify anger at that situation and stop that activity from the devotee being harmed. At that time, that exhibition of anger is justified. It's not seen as something for your self-pleasure. You are not getting angry. Or for example, somebody is beating a cow. We see the example of Parikshit Maharaj. When he sees that the Kali Purusha is beating the bull and the cow, right? He's beating the cow. We see that he's getting angry. He's immediately removing his sword. Now, that is justified. Similarly, Hanuman, who is exemplifying this anger and burning Lanka because he's seeing that Mother Sita is being captured and being tortured. So that is glorified. If I go and torch another's house, I will be put behind bars. But Hanuman is every Dashera, Ram Navami, and all these times there he's glorified for his action. So this is keeping Krishna in the center. And we see so many examples in Prabhupada's life where when Juhu, Radha Ras Bihari, was being attacked, and when devotees were being harmed by Mr. Nair, and the deities were trying to be broken, there were devotees on the street. Or the latest Bangladesh episode when devotees were tortured, the ISKCON devotees were angered and they were on the street. So all these examples are not for self, for taking care of certain selfish motives. It is for the community, it is for others. So violence, if we exhibit violence, but by exhibiting that violence, we prevail peace in the society, then it is non-violence. But we keep non-violence and don't get angry, by which there is no peace in the society, then that is violence. So if I keep quiet while a cat or a dog or a cow or a human being is being abused, and I say I follow non-violence, I should not get angry, actually I'm doing a violent act. But if I am taking a violent act, but I'm stopping for a genuine reason, a devotee being harmed, a temple being harmed, a deity being harmed, and I'm doing a violent act, stopping a person, getting angry, shouting at them, actually I'm doing non-violent activity because I am retaining peace in the society. So this is the motto when I said that for Krishna and for devotees. So a non-violent act promoting no peace in the society is violence, whereas violence which promotes peace is actually seen as sin. I know it's a little confusing, but then I hope I could explain it.
Yes, I got it, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the clarification.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I've been in situations with maybe family members, and they'll talk, they'll say ill things or something negative, or you're like this or you like that. So I've seen when I agree with them and say, yeah, I am like this, and or apologize, then they get more angry. They say, oh, you're being sarcastic. You're trying to be over smart, or you're giving me sarcasm. So what should one do in that kind of situation?
So one has to deeply introspect. If we really are not sarcastic, our pitch, our tone, our body language of what we are saying will be in sync with what we say. I can give you an example. Oh, I am like this. If you say like this, it's clearly sarcasm. I understand from your point of view. I know we both are different, but I understand your point of view. But on this topic, I think we both have different thoughts. Maybe some other day we can talk about it. In the meanwhile, let's have prasad together. At least food doesn't have this variant thought, so let's have food. If you say like this, there is no sarcasm. People will not feel it. Trust me, both are sentient beings. Krishna is there in both of their hearts, in your family members who may accept Krishna consciousness or who do not accept Krishna consciousness, Krishna is residing in their heart as well. Dadami buddhi yogantam. Krishna gives that intelligence to them to understand sarcasm, no sarcasm, emotions, everything. So we respect that. And even if we are not sarcastic and they feel we are sarcastic, we just say, maybe we are not on the same plane. Thank you very much. We move on. There is that, trust me, when that happens over a period of time and they observe you like that over a period of time, they change. And don't expect that they will come to you, knock on your doors and say, you know what, based on your behavior over the years, even though I shouted at you, you did not retaliate back. Because of that, I became a devotee. Don't expect that. They will never see. But they will become a devotee. If you expect that, you fall into pride. See, because of it, they changed. So that's the snare of Maya we have to be constantly thinking. Oh, you became a devotee. Because I saw you. Oh, you're very good. You're very good for this. Thank you. That way. Does that answer the question, also?
Yes,
Our
Prabhuji.
pitch, our tone, our words, very clearly we need to introspect whether they give out sarcasm or not. And if it is genuine and they still say, don't bother about it.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Dear devotees, if there are no more questions or realization at this time, with permission of His Grace Haridas Varya Prabhuji and all the assembled devotees, I would like to close the call. Once again, I would really like to thank His Grace Haridas Varya Prabhuji for his valuable time and association today. Thank you very much for a very beautiful nectarian class, Prabhuji. We look forward to your association in the near future. Your classes are always very nectarian and very detailed. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much,
Jagadguru
Prabhuji.
Prabhupada.
Very, very nice.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Thank you.
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
Jai
अनंत वैष्णविंद की जय, नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय,
Jai.
प्रभुपाद की जय, हिज ग्रेस
Jai.
हरिदास वर्या प्रभु जी की जय।
Ki
Jai.
jai.
Guru Maharaj ki
So
jai.
much,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
very
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Happy
Hare
Ganesh
Krishna.
Chaturthi for who all celebrate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Happy Ganesh
Wonderful.
Chaturthi.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We will close the call for today.